Welcome back. One of the best ways to teach children how does their garden grow is to let them plant it and learn from it. Plant the Seed is an organization that is turning school gardens into classrooms. Susanna Topoulos is the organization's founder and director, and I welcome her to the show.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, just to know that you're out there helping these young people.
Well, thank you.
Learn where their food comes from, because I think so often they have no idea.
They don't. It's so fantastic to watch a young person literally have their mind blown by pulling a carrot out of the ground, because they're all washed and packaged at Kroger, right? And that's fine. We want kiddos to have access to that too. But to understand that it's a root they're eating and it grows underground, it's a very powerful lesson, and one that I think our culture has walked away from for a couple of generations now. Even as adults, we're not super tied to how our food grows and to the inputs needed to grow healthy food. So it's a valuable life lesson for these young people. We're not sure yet. We've done no longitudinal studies, but we feel pretty confident that there's a potential for long-term positive behavior around how they eat and how they connect to the land.
I can totally believe that. Well, you're in classrooms, you're in learning centers, and even the library.
We are. We have 6, 7 partner schools now and 4 public libraries, and we work with right at 1,000 students once a week, connecting their learning to the garden. And that's been something that's kind of surprised us. I set out wanting kiddos to know where their food comes from and connecting to it and to one another through food. But what we've learned is it's an incredibly powerful teaching tool. Like a kiddo who maybe is not quite connecting in the traditional classroom finds a way to connect in a powerful way in the garden. It's kinesthetic learning. It's driven by the students' wonder of the natural world, and we get to capitalize on that and show them these really powerful moments of awe and inspiration that happen in the garden. And I believe if you're emotionally connected to your learning, then you're truly learning. It sticks with them.
It really, really does. They take that ownership of, you know, I did this.
Absolutely. There's such pride when their seed germinates and they own it. They're like, that is my carrot. And then when they get to taste it at the end and it's run its full cycle from seed to plate, then that's a really powerful lesson.
I can just imagine. Well, you started with them really young. Talk about the age range.
Yes, so we got our start with Metro Public Schools via the pre-K centers, the early learning centers. So mostly 4- and 5-year-olds, but they've expanded that down to 3-year-olds. And we have some really great gardeners who are 3 years old. We have set the bar rather high. A lot of our standards are 2nd grade science standards. We do an herbal hand salve lesson, so they're learning about changes in states of matter from a liquid to a solid, and they get it because they're doing it. It's hands-on, it's tangible. And so, yeah, the 3-year-olds are in it. They have really wonderful questions, and they get to exhibit a lot of empathy toward the natural world, which I think is largely missing too. We don't understand our impact on the natural world, and the kiddos get it. We had a kiddo who, it was like he was preaching the good news. He's like, everybody, there are bees on these blueberry flowers, and that means we're going to have lots of blueberries this year. Absolutely got the pollinator lesson and was celebrating it. It was good news.
Well, I would love if you could talk a little bit more about the program and what's included. What are the young people learning to plant, grow, and I understand they even get to work with chickens.
Oh yes,
what's included in their program?
So it really is comprehensive. It's about creating a space where the young people get to take ownership of the space. So we've designed it with the 4- and 5-year-old in mind when we're at the Early Learning Center. So they get to come out and interact with the space in an autonomous way. So they direct their learning. We've set up centers, things like a mud kitchen, a potting station to practice those skills, little wheelbarrows so they're out there practicing some gross motor skills, and balancing a wheelbarrow is a real skill.
I know, that's true.
And we connect every lesson to multiple learning standards. There's really intense new vocabulary, things like decomposition and observation, like big multi-syllabic words that the pre-K student really gets a concept of because they're using it. And I think, again, it's about that hands-on component. They get to get dirty. They get to observe a butterfly firsthand. They get to be amazed when a hummingbird kind of whizzes by them. And for a lot of our students, they're in an urban environment where those things are not natural occurrences. So it's a safe way to explore this thing that's rather unfamiliar, but still kind of sparking their interest. And I mean, we had a teacher observe in one insect house lesson. We do a where do they go when it gets cold lesson and build an insect house. One teacher in a single photo of her student in action observed 8 standards being hit at one time. So it's this powerful teaching tool, but they're having so much fun, they don't even know they're learning. They're having a blast. Yeah.
Do you also carry this to the teachers and onto their parents?
Yes.
Because I'm sure the children are awfully excited about it.
Oh, yes.
And they talk about it to their teachers and their parents.
Totally. We joke that kiddos don't have buying power, but they have bugging power. So they'll be like, Mom, 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 Mom. Absolutely. And that's important. I'm glad you mentioned that. The kiddos get a lot out of it, but there needs to be a place for that to go, that awe and wonder to go. So once a month we send home what we call a Bringing the Garden Home lesson that goes, and then the young person, it's something that they've studied in that month, goes home to the family. So the young person is the expert. They know something about it and they get to share that with their family, their siblings, their grandparents, and that's really powerful too. To take something you've learned and to teach someone else about it really puts them in the capacity of both learner and teacher. It's really wonderful. And yes, part of our partnership with Metro has allowed us to have teachers in the garden with us. So there are these job-embedded training opportunities, this shadowing opportunity, because honestly, our adults are the hardest folks to convince that they can do this, right? Like they've decided they don't have a green thumb.
Yes.
And so you're like, no, come alongside and learn alongside your student. It really shows the student a great way for the teacher to be where they get to be the learner too. So it's really a wonderful way to help then build in that continuity, because the teacher can take the garden lesson back to the classroom and do a deepening activity that addresses some of those things we touched on, but they can, you know, drive it into literature or into new vocabulary or into a science standard or art. So it really is a great way to enhance the existing learning objectives for teacher, parent, student, everybody.
That's a good starting point to jump off to something else. So do you need volunteers? If someone, this is such a wonderful program, if there's someone looking for a way to volunteer or get involved, this would be a great opportunity.
Oh, it is, and it's fun. So if you're an adult who wants to learn a little bit more about gardening yourself, we welcome folks to come into the garden. We also have opportunities, big volunteer days, where it requires a little bit more adult power than kiddo power. So volunteer days where we're doing a big garden build and we're installing fruit trees. We need to dig some pretty good sized holes for that. And so there are opportunities to do the builds. But if you're interested in education, or you're interested in gardening, or you're interested in that environmental connection, absolutely, we'd love to have you as a volunteer. We have monthly volunteer opportunities for the orientation. You can just check our website and sign up online.
And that's planttheseed.com?
It's planttheseed.org.
Well, I know you're excited because as a nonprofit, you're always looking for ways to make more money, because there just never seems to be enough nonprofits. You just work so hard. And you have a big event coming up, the Harvest Breakfast.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
It's our first ever. We feel very lucky with our Metro Schools partnership to be able to be a contract vendor with Metro Schools, and really have kind of tucked our heads down, developed a really strong resource, a toolkit that teachers and families get to use, and a method. How do we deliver this? How is it effective to work with students this way in the garden and connect it to their curricular standards? So we've been able to do that, and now we find ourselves in this sort of arc of the growth of our organization, needing to tell our story to new audiences. So this is a fundraising breakfast for sure. It'll be at the Nashville Farmers Market on October 25th from 7:30 to 9. It's a no-charge event because it's really come and hear our story and see if this speaks to you. See if this is something you're interested in volunteering for or investing in, because as I said, it's really much bigger than the one incidences in the garden. I mean, we're a culture not connected to our food, and so it's learning for everybody really in where your food comes from. We'd love to have folks come out and learn more about us.
Well, you are one of those organizations that if ever anybody was going to help out, you're doing great work.
Oh, thank you so much.
Is there something that's a need, other than, of course, donations? Are you needing gardening supplies, or is there anything that's a need for the organization?
Really, at this point, we have determined that our need is in building allies. We want folks who aren't in the circle of education or in the circle of agriculture or food justice, because we kind of straddle those worlds and feel like we've made some good connections. I mean, I'm really honored that Nashville is my hometown, and that there isn't this sort of divisiveness, competition sort of thing in the nonprofit world. we really share resources, we share information. So we want to expand that network a bit.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Wonderful organization.
Thank you for having us.
I want to thank my earlier guest as well from Southern Word for being here as well. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on The Plus Side.